Hey guys, I want to take some time, and I know it's been a minute since I've done a one-off video like this, and just talk a bit about something that's probably going to fall out of the news because of recent events here. I am, of course, recording this the same day that we got the drop that Tim Pool is owned by the Russian oligarchs, oh my god, and Matt Christensen, and all these other, quote, right-wing influencers. But there's been something that's been on my mind for a little while that's come out of the Kamala Harris campaign, and that's the fact that one of the big proposals that they had is to go back and go do a unrealized gains tax. Now, I don't know how legal, constitutional, or otherwise an unrealized gains tax would be. This is something that even some liberal members of Congress are looking at and saying, hey, this is going to fucking wreck us if we go back and do this. So I don't see this being a huge deal, but I look at the influencers, both paid and the people who follow the paid influencers and repeat the lines of the paid influencers, who are running around screaming about the fact that this is even happening right now. And they're all in favor of this because, this is going to level the playing field, tax the billionaires, this is never going to affect the middle class. And, well, just outright on paper, that is bullshit for a couple of different reasons. Now, in the proposal, and this is what's been released to the public, the big driver of this and the reason that the little guy is so much in favor of this is the fact that there's a caveat that this tax, this new extra imposition, is only going to affect people who have $100 million worth of assets on paper. So it's only going to affect the people who have X amount of millions or billions of dollars, and they're going to get taxed on what it goes up throughout the year. Now, they're not going to get a tax refund on where it goes down. Don't be fucking ridiculous. That's never going to happen in any stretch of the universe. But they're going to get taxed if their assets go up throughout the year. And they're going to get about a 25% tax on this. Now, it's interesting because the people who are supporting this typically seem to believe, and I don't know what they actually believe or not in any of this, I'm going to come right out and say that, but they typically support the idea that these people just have $1 billion worth of cash sitting in the Scrooge McDuck money bin. They don't even know what an unrealized gain is. They just know that Kamala Harris is saying, tax the billionaires, come back out here, tax them, get all that money. And I wanted to make a video about the difference between cash on hand and wealth for a very, very long time. It's been something that's been on my mind since Biden was running for office back in 2020. We're going to get into a little bit of that here because, part of some of the things that I've looked at when I've looked into this, it does involve the redistribution, which is what it is that our friends on the left actually want to see, is the redistribution. They want to see all that money come back out of the hands of the billionaires and go flowing down to the people, which in the 40 years that I've been alive has never been what the government's used it for. They typically use it to go conduct wars and world policing around the world. And yes, that is both administrations. I was one of the brainwashed ones who thought it was only Bush and Cheney and the evil Republicans. Yeah, I'm glad I grew the fuck out of that. But let's talk a bit about what Harris's plan is. Now, I pulled up a CNBC article, and I want to just look at here and cite for what the mainstream media is telling us about. One of the proposals is a 25% minimum tax on total income, including so-called unrealized gains, which, that in and of itself is going to require an army of accountants, personal financiers, and and everybody else around tax time to actually verify what's going on to this. The IRS is going to have to come back in and go on a massive hiring spree to go and see what everybody's assets are. Make more government work. That's always been the battle cry of Democrats. they're going to have to hire so many people. I don't know that this 25% tax is going to fund the amount of people they'll have to hire because, well, that's one of the things with it. It's just like when they talked about the Donald Trump, he's devaluing his property so he doesn't have to pay as many taxes on them. Well, it is incumbent on the government to go back in and assess the taxes that you have on this thing. I mean, no, I don't own a house right now. I've made that very clear. I'm working on buying something right now. But if I owned a house right now, just a simple fixer-upper $90,000 house, and I wanted to get an equity loan to go actually do some of the fixering and uppering of that house, there is no bank in the world, anywhere on this planet, who is going to take my word for it when I say, oh no, it's totally a $500,000 house. Give me the home equity loan against the $500,000 here, and I'll go fix this back up, and you'll get all your assets back, and you'll have all this collateral. No, they're going to send their own assessor out. And he's going to look at every outlet. He's going to look at the carpet, the frame, the mold, the roof, and everything else, and determine what the on-paper value is of my asset before he gives me a penny against what that asset is. And he's also going to look at what I owe on that asset against what it's worth in his eyes. And the tax assessor does the same thing. Like your county, your parish, your municipality, everything else. They all do the exact same thing. So in and of itself, if the IRS is going to want to go back and figure out what these unrealized gains is, they're actually going to need an army of accountants to figure out what these assessments are, what these people owe on paper, go through everything with a fine-tooth comb to figure out what they're going with. So that's in and of itself the first time, but we'll move that out. That's something the Harris campaign is never going to talk about. Let's talk about the only affecting 100 million, because I love my libertarian friends, and they do bring up a good argument about the income tax and what that was supposed to be when I got started, but they're missing the mark by a mile, and some of them I think are doing it by design. I think some of them are just coming out here to scream their taxation and theft rhetoric, and I think some of them are coming out here to try to sabotage the narrative, to try to keep the right wing riled up against Kamala Harris. So the libertarian argument against this is the fact that, well, all the way back in World War II or after World War II, when we had to go back and fund World War II, the income tax was only supposed to affect the 1%, the upper 1%, and it was never supposed to go on, and the government just goes through and they extend the taxes and they extend the taxes. This is true, by the way. I'm not discounting the argument that the libertarians are making with this. What I'm going to with this actually is that's not the immediacy of this. This is something that's hypothetical and down the road. There is a danger in the immediacy that we do need to address when we talk about something like this, and that's the fact that, especially in stocks, with billionaire stocks and bonds, treasuries, ETFs, etc., these billionaires are trading in the same markets that the rest of us are. They're doing so in a much higher volume than the rest of us are. Now, where am I going with this? When we talk about the assets that you have, we talk about, and our friends on the left like to talk about, nobody needs a mega yacht or a building, this skyscraper, this mansion, this, that, the next thing. They always talk about big ticket items. The problem with big ticket items, and something that I wanted to go with when I talk about wealth, and that probably is going to be a separate video because I'm already coming up on the 10-minute mark. The problem with going after the big ticket items, trying to force them to sell their mega yacht, their skyscraper, their mansion, their Bugatti, all these things that actually appreciate within value that they would pay the gains tax on, is the fact that the only people who can buy those at any form whatsoever of a fair market value are the government or other billionaires. And the government, number one, is never going to give them fair market value for any of that. They're going to seize that. They're going to give them pennies on the dollar, this, that, the next thing, and say, oh, your tax bill is paid. Look at the, yay. No, oh, we got this. And then they're not going to give them credit for the next year either by any stretch of the imagination. Now, the two liquid forms of asset that these, quote, billionaires have out there are cash, liquid cash, which the intelligent ones don't carry very much of. They squirrel that stuff away into assets so that it actually gains value, because with 20% inflation over 3 years, and we're somehow down to under 3%, which I don't buy. That's a topic for another video or another episode of Contemporary. That cash loses value. Assets gain value. It's part of the reason I was so pissed about the identity theft that's happened in my life, and the fact that I don't own property right now, is the fact that I don't have anything that gains in value at this point, other than maybe some Bitcoin and some Doge, and a few stocks that I have to my name. These people put this money into things that gain value, that gain them status, and they can liquidate if they need to. If times get hard, if the bottom falls out or anything else like that, yeah, they can go find another billionaire to go buy the mega yacht, the mansion, the this, the that, and the next thing, and live to fight another day. But when they have an immediacy, when they've got a tax bill coming, because they happen to gain, let's use $1 million as our benchmark. So they need to come up with $250,000 stat to go back out and pay this tax bill. Very few of them, I don't believe, would have $250,000 cash on them. Many of them will. They're going to turn around and they're going to sell stock, which hits them double fold as well. Now, they're going to lose that value on themselves. They're going to get taxed. If they had $1 million in gain, they're going to lose $250,000 worth of stock, which is going to drive the price down on the stocks that they choose to sell. And, you start having, what do we have, like 18, 20 billionaires in this country? And they all start unloading $250,000 of stock at a time, or more at a time. Yeah, you're going to start to see some major depressions in the Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ come April 15th. And that's not just going to hit the billionaires. What are your 401ks in right now? Stock. What are your retirements in? Stock. What if you have anything other than the house over your head? What is that all in right now? And even the smaller, the companies, the business, or the smaller rich people who are on the top of a company or a business. They've got stock in their own company, of course, but many of them are also dabbling their stock out there, investing in the same markets that these people are trading these stocks in. That is a cause and a concern in the immediacy. On top of that, you've got the compounding effect, because once they've sold these $250,000 worth of stock, guess what? That's a capital gain. So now you're subject to the 20% stock on the capital gain on the $250,000 that we're using as our nice round number. So now you've lost another $12,500, which means you've got to go back and sell more stock. And it circulates and circulates and circulates and circulates at this point. And they will go after you for the stock that you go back onto that. God forbid you actually do go back off and sell your mansion or your mega yacht or everything else. Yeah, they're going to hit you even harder for that. But yeah, they'll go back around. They'll turn around and just continue to cycle this out and cycle this out. People continuing to sell stocks until the Dow is ground to pretty much nothing. And this, of course, on top of the fact that it's going to cost more and more every year for the IRS to go back out and enforce this. See, and that's the hardest part of this, too. I mean, like I said, these people don't carry this cash around on them. Remember what Elon Musk had to do? And Elon Musk has the record for the tax bill in this country. $11 million because he sold $440 billion for X? Just some ridiculous amount, and they just hammered on him for taxes off of this. So, something to keep in mind when we're having these arguments and talking about this. Again, I agree with my libertarian friends that yes, they're eventually going to run out of money to go tap out of the billionaires, and it's going to start going after the middle class. But in the immediacy, this is economy crippling. This is the situation where, now we're sitting here and people who had a comfortable retirement, maybe a second property or something else off of there, or a number of different things that are tied to the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, and the S&P, are now sitting here looking at their portfolio thinking, what the hell did I do wrong? Where did I invest wrong? What do I do now? I'm 75 years old. My arms are broken. I can't work anymore. What do I do? Social Security doesn't pay enough for everything, and this nice big 401k that I gathered up, it's not doing shit for me anymore. So, some things to watch for this here. I'm not going to go down the wealth rabbit hole right now. I thought about it when I was making this video. But we'll talk about this again, and we will see you on Tuesday for a double dose because we're doing contemporary and we're doing debate night that night. So, looking forward to seeing you guys here for that, and take care.